Hello guys, and now we are on the seventh game in the Blockades and Prophylaxis series, and this game was played between Solmundarson and Smyslow in Reykjavik 1974. Smyslow is the black player, and let's see what happened in the game. I'll show you from the black side. And after c4, knight f6, now knight c3, c5, now knight f3, e6, e3, d5, d4, knight c6. Both players chose Tarrasch setup. White's next move prepares the advance of b4 after d takes c5. Black decides to parry this in original fashion. After a3, now knight to e4. Knight takes e4. And here queen c2 is also correct, intending to prove black's last move was a waste of time. But after knight takes e4, d takes e4, now knight to e5, white goes for symmetry, but black will soon be a pawn up. Now knight takes e5, d takes e5, now queen g5, bishop to d2, queen takes e5, bishop c3, queen c7, and queen c2, f5, and long castles. After a strangely played opening, the position is very interesting. Black has an extra pawn, but white certainly has compensation. Black must find a safe spot for his king. Now bishop to d7. Here king to f7 gives white some initiative after f3, ef3, and gf3. So if at all bishop to d6, then this allows bishop takes g7. So after bishop d7, f3, ef3, gf3, long castles, rook g1, bishop c6, rook takes d8 check, and queen takes d8. Now e4. White has the initiative. However, black shouldn't be in much trouble. There are a few logical, peaceful continuations for black. Having said that, Smyslow was never a fan of defense. He would much rather play with the initiative as compensation for material. So his next move is understandable. Still, had this game been played at an international team event or at a more important tournament, I don't think he would have chosen the move he played. Now g6. One cannot say that the move is bad. It is simply solid, but should it be chosen? Perhaps Smyslow wanted to confuse the opponent. Maybe he underestimated him. Here f takes e4, f takes e4, and queen to h4 was evidently a good option for black. It is difficult to prove that white's initiative is worth a pawn. This move was definitely better, objectively. Smyslow based his decision on psychology. After g6, now bishop takes h8, bishop h6 check, king b1, queen takes h8. Objectively, there is a dynamic balance. White has a small material edge, but his rook cannot be used effectively. White's weakened dark squares are the most important factor in the position, but it is currently unclear how black can benefit from them. Now bishop to d3. This is one of a horrible mistake. White misses his last chance for active play. Having a rook on the board, white must open some files. Here e takes f5 was a must. After e takes f5, Both sides will have their chances. The weakness of the f3 pawn is not significant. Black would only be able to attack it twice. But after bishop to d3, now bishop e3, rook e1, f4. After this move, white is unable to find an open file for his rook. Black is now better because he has set up a blocking net all over the board. Only he has chances to organize active play. Now bishop to f1, queen f6, bishop to h3, king d7, queen d1 check, and king e7. What is the idea behind this king maneuver? It is to prevent white's potential expansion on the queen side. White needs some open files for his rook. The h file cannot be opened. Black would easily prevent it. On the queen side, it will also be impossible to open files properly because it would jeopardize the safety of the white king. Transferring it to the king's side would just be ridiculous because the black's incoming pawns. Another idea behind black's king evacuation will soon be clear. Now king to h1 and queen h4. Now bishop f1 and g5. Black patiently improves his position on the king side. Bishop to d3, bishop to d4, queen e1, queen h5, queen e2, now e5. A very important move. A battery on locked dark square diagonal would not bring anything to black. On the other hand, white could potentially advance his pawn to e5, liberating his bishop. By giving away that pawn, white could achieve some active play. Now queen to g2, bishop to d7, h3, queen h4, bishop e2, and a5. The idea of this move is to paralyze the position on the queen side. White is almost hopeless. However, black must still find a plan or agree to a draw. Here, queen to g3 would not lead to anything. White simply plays queen f1, waiting. So after a5, king a2, bishop to e6. The next few moves were probably played in with the idea to delay any serious action and wait for the 40th move when players receive more time. Here after king b1, king f6, king c2, h6, king b1, bishop f7, rook d1, bishop h5, bishop f1, now bishop f7, bishop e2, bishop e6, and rook h1 and a4. After getting additional time, black goes for the kill. Before striking on the king side, he fixes the position on the queen side. Now king c2, black's pieces are on their ultimate squares. In such situation, they logically need additional help. Evidently, the pawns cannot help. Expanding would open the position. The king. Now the king is the correct piece. So king g6. There is a route for the king. The queen will vacate the h4 square and the king will penetrate. Then king b1, queen g3, queen f1, king h5, king c2, king h4, b3, b5. Smyslow keeps the queen side blocked first. Here, instead of b5, if bishop takes f3 was possible, but white to take risk. Here a takes b3 and king takes b3 and queen to f2 was also very good. After b5, ba4, ba4 and bishop d3 and h5. White can only watch while the black pieces infiltrate. Now king b1, queen f2, queen takes f2, bishop takes f2, rook h2, king g3, and white resigned here. A very instructive game. White missed the chance to open a file for his rook, and so his defeat is the logical result. Uh, Viewers, in your games, choose a pawn structure that favors your pieces. Don't forget, ultimately, active pieces need extra support. In some cases, especially in endgames, the king is the superior piece. So, thank you all. I'll be meeting you in the next game.